Welcome to Isolation Discs Part 2. This week we have...
My name's Ian Pinkett.
Excellent. And Ian, what is it you do? What are you passionate about? Do you have a job? Do you have hobbies? Or what is your passion?
What are my passions? So I suppose my passions are definitely music and films and games and my family and my work. I work as a uh, business analyst for a company called Arcadis. They are a multinational consultancy company, quite an ethical company. I've been working them for just under a year. They're a really good fit for me. I really enjoy working for them. Um, but I suppose the big things certainly the majority of my life now have been festivals and live music. But I also geek out on comic books, games, etc.
That's kind of where we met, isn't it? Music festivals, dancing in fields. It's my hobby.
I think the very first time we met was at Rage Against the Machine at Hyde Park.
Finsbury Park. Yeah, it was a free gig that they put on for people buying over X Factor, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Seriously, yeah. I remember because to get tickets to that, you had to go into a lottery, much like you have to do for Glastonbury, really. And my wife and my son Michael were in Portugal when those tickets were on sale, so we had to get online in Portugal to try and get hold of them. But yeah, it was a great day. Some great support. I remember the Gallows supported, and then of course Roots Maneuver, a personal favourite of mine. But yeah, Rage has always been an important part of my musical life.
Interesting. Excellent. And they're not on your playlist. So that's an interesting idea there.
It is. It is. Absolutely is. And I suppose we can talk about that when we come to live songs, and also why I chose the song I did 18. But yeah.
Cool. Okay, tell us what have you been doing since lockdown that you didn't used to do beforehand?
Wow, what have I been doing in lockdown? I suppose sharing the house with more than just my family would be the big one. As we have two friends living with us at the moment. When I say living with us, they're actually living on our driveway. They live in a motorhome for the majority of the year, kind of within Portugal, and then they travel around the festival scene during the summer. And without going into the story, basically, for the time being, they are living in our front and are part of our household because of that. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've been doing, and my wife and son have been doing since lockdown.
Very nice of you. I know hopefully I'll get them to do one of these discs shows as well. Maybe from their camper van. Stealing your Wi-Fi probably. Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah.
Okay, following on with the lockdown, what piece of advice could you give to people who found themselves not being able to leave home? What one piece of advice could you give to people?
I think it's really important to make sure that you're communicating effectively. So if you need space from people, you need to be talking about needing space from people. Um, and I would also advise those people that can take their exercise on a daily basis to get out and do that exercise so that you're not confined to four walls.
Yeah, sound advice. Sound advice. My advice was to don't just sit and look at the internet and read what's going on the internet. Find something to occupy yourself and do something. Maybe learn something new. So, yeah. But that's my advice and your advice. So, cool. Um, let's talk about your music. Tell me about the song that was important to you when you were 18. Of course, that song doesn't have to be around when you were 18. It didn't have to be a chart song then. But what is that song?
So the song I chose was "No Good Start the Dance" by the Prodigy. So the Prodigy are probably the second greatest live act I've seen of all time. I think Rage just peaks it. However, in a completely different way, the Prodigy are just immense and amazing. And I was already aware of them and had seen them around various like raves around the kind of East Midlands. They used to pull up in a car park outside of Venue 44 in Mansfield, for instance. But hadn't really jumped on the Prodigy train until I heard Their Law, which was a collaboration between them and another group that I'm a massive fan of, Police Itself. And it just it hit a nerve with me, and as a result, I started going to see them wherever I could. And I'd always said that if I ever DJ'd in a club, the one song that I would have on my playlist from the start, having worked in a club, I used to work in Rock City in Nottingham for quite the formative years of my life, I suppose. And I always thought the song that I would put on to start my set would be No Good Start of the Dance by the Prodigy. I think the introduction to it is our call to arms to rush to the dance floor and dance your tits off.
Yeah, I've seen them many times. Yeah, and we probably danced in the same field before we knew each other
Yeah,
to
definitely.
exactly that song.
Yes.
Yeah, it's strange how lives intermingle.
The impact that Keith Flint had on me at that age too, and the transition that he made from what was a floppy-haired raver to this pinnacle of punk, metal, rap, dance, icon, and how that kind of carried through. And it hit me hard last year when Keith committed suicide. Like a lot of us, I think, because he most definitely was. A phrase that's often coined, but it doesn't usually truly represent. He was a poster boy for us. He represented a lot that we thought, I think.
Yeah, totally. So, next track. Tell us about a track that you brought with you from childhood, and how did you get that track?
Yeah, so the track I chose was Neil Diamond's "Mr. Bojangles," and Neil Diamond is one of a handful of acts or artists or solo artists that I remember my dad playing a lot of in the many car journeys that we had when I was a child, whether it be driving to go on holiday somewhere in the UK, or whether it was traveling from Nottingham down to my grandparents in Coventry, because I was born in Coventry and moved to Nottingham when I was around 8. And often on the way down, my dad would put on his music, and on the way back, because it was usually a Sunday, we'd listen to a chart show. But one of the artists that I really liked and I carried through with me was definitely Neil Diamond. And I think Mr. Bojangles off his first album is just a fantastic song. I think it really stands up, and it's often one that's overlooked from his catalogue. Everybody knows, the more famous ones, but that one really strikes a chord. So yeah, it reminds me of great times. And I suppose the other part of it is, yeah, my dad's never been to see live music, so years later, my wife Makala, she bought tickets for me and my dad to go and see Neil Diamond live in concert in the NEC. And my dad turned down the tickets because he said that he didn't think Neil Diamond was as good as he used to be, and didn't want to go and see him. So me and Makala went to see him instead. And I've got to say, it's probably in the top 5 gigs that I've ever been to. We played for 3.5 hours non-stop, no support. He was just phenomenal.
So, going back to music, we discover music all of the time. So, tell us about somebody that you discovered in the past 12 months and why they're so incredible.
Yeah, so there's this band stroke individual, and there was another band that both kind of came into the frame. But when I checked, when I discovered the other band, they were just outside of the 12 months, and I'm a
That's
stickler
the
for
Nova
rules.
Twins, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm a stickler for rules, so I couldn't win. Otherwise, I would have chosen the Nova Twins, because I think they're the greatest thing coming out of the UK at the moment, from a new band perspective. However, I think it was in the summer. I was listening to a podcast, and it's a podcast that I listen to quite regularly by Ramesh Ranganathan. It's his Hip Hop Saved My Life podcast, and I'd recommend anybody that likes him or who likes hip hop to listen to that podcast, because he has a lot of great guests. And in there was an interview with I can't remember who now, but they mentioned this guy called Anderson .Paak, and they mentioned in particular this song 6 Years of Summer, which is a rap protest song against Trump. and not in your typical angry rap type way either. Quite a funky backdrop, but quite a very good political message within there. And then listened to the rest of the album and really liked the rest of the album. And then found out they were due to play one of the festivals we were due to go to this summer, and was incredibly excited to see them on the lineup. In fact, when we were away last year in Greece for Dave's 50th, he was one of the bands that, when we had a night doing the playlist, he was one of the bands that I put on the playlist. So it also brings back memories of that too.
Fantastic. So, tell us about a track, a live track. So maybe this was from a gig that you were at, or a gig that you wish you were at. So, what is that?
Yeah, so I thought a lot long and hard about live, because live's really important, and it's the medium that I prefer to consume my music in, really. And Rage are always front and center here, because they're just fantastic live. And it would have been really easy for me to have put in anything from their live albums, or some of their very early live recordings, because they're always the same, full of energy, and really get across what the band is about, which is no frills, no pretense, just in your face music. But one of those genres of music that I love is hip hop, and it often gets a bad rap, if you pardon the pun, when it comes to live music, because quite a lot of the time the production in live is really bad. So then I was thinking back about potentially other things I could choose, and I thought, Nirvana's Unplugged album is fantastic, and then Pearl Jam's Unplugged album, in fact, that got a re-release on vinyl for Christmas Record Store Day recently, is really good. And then I remembered that Jay-Z had done a Unplugged album, and went back and listened to it and remembered how good it was, and chose one of the songs off there, which is fantastic.
So I see on your playlist you have Hymn of the Big Wheel, Massive Attack. I know that we went to see Massive Attack in the pouring rain a few years ago, and we both said my favourite tune by Massive Attack is Hymn of the Big Wheel, and they're not going to play that, but they actually opened with it.
Yeah, we both cried in the rain to it.
I think that might be the alcohol.
Quite possibly. Yeah. But we at that time we went to me and Adrian had gone to the wrong bar, and we were supposed to be picking up bottles of beer. The only bottles they sold were wine, so we bought back 8 bottles of wine, I think. That might have been, well, it's definitely your downfall when it came to you recreating the Take That Jesus Christ pose in the rain at the end of the night, but the rest of us too, I suppose.
Okay, so out of all of these tracks, which one, if people have only got 2 to 5 minutes, which one would you say this is the must listen to?
So Nova Twins is there, okay, again, but I've already kind of raved on about them, so hopefully people would look up and listen to that anyway. So I think the one I would say that everybody should go away and listen to is Plan B, Kids. It's off his first album, and it was before his Strickland Bank phase, and it was more attuned to what you would later see in the movie that he directed. The name just skipped me right now. And
Ill Manners.
Ill Manners, his third album. Ill Manners, but it's a lot rawer because of where he was and who he was at that time. And I've always been a great believer that the best rap is social commentary, and that's exactly what it is. It's a form of street poetry. And in that track, he reminds me of one of my favourite MCs of all time, which is KRS-One, in the way he describes what's going on. And I just think I think he's overlooked in the skill he has as a rapper, but not overlooked in the skill he has as an all-round entertainer. But I found him back then, and I think he was fantastic then, and would recommend people go back to listen to that catalogue.
Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Yeah, cool. I'm going to sign off.
I just recommend everybody listen to the playlist as well. There's a few more tracks on there that we haven't talked about. I hope you enjoy it.